David Cole had been living on Aster 7 for 5 years. It was a quiet planet, filled with purple skies, cold winds, and endless forests. He worked alone in a small mining outpost, collecting rare minerals for the company back on Earth. Every week, a supply drone would come, drop food, take the minerals, and leave. David liked the silence. He had no family, no friends nearby, and no drama. But one cold night changed everything. There was a loud boom in the sky. David looked up and saw a streak. A fire falling fast toward the forest. It wasn't a meteor. It was too controlled, too strange. He grabbed his scanner, flashlight, and a thermal blanket. Then got on his rover and drove toward the crash site. After 20 minutes, he saw smoke rising through the trees. The wreckage of a small alien ship was burning in a clearing. Of the hull were scattered around, strange symbols glowed faintly on the metal. The ship looked advanced, more advanced than anything humans had. David moved closer, carefully checking the area. The inside of the ship was crushed. There was no one in the pilot's seat. No crew. Just broken equipment and quiet sparks. Then he heard it. A soft cry. Like a child, he rushed toward the sound and found a small figure lying under a piece of metal. A little girl, but not human. Her skin was smooth and violet. Her eyes were silver and wide with fear. She had no hair, just soft lines on her head that shimmered in the light. She was shaking. David gently lifted the metal and knelt beside her. "Hey, it's okay," he said softly. "I'm here to help." The child looked at him, scared but curious. She didn't speak. But when David held out his hand, she reached out and touched it. Her fingers were warm. She was bleeding from a cut on her leg. "I've got you," he whispered. David wrapped her in the thermal blanket and carried her back to his rover. On the ride home, she didn't speak a word. She just stared at him. With those strange silver eyes, back at his small outpost, David cleaned her wounds and gave her warm food. She didn't eat much, but she drank water and slowly stopped shaking. He put her in a warm bed and stayed nearby all night, making sure she was okay. Days passed. The girl still didn't speak, but she followed David everywhere. She copied his movements, watched him work, and smiled whenever he made her laugh. Gave her a name. Leary. David searched for any news about a missing alien ship or signals nearby, but there was nothing. No one came. No one asked questions. It was like she had fallen out of the sky and been forgotten. So, David did the only thing he could. He raised her. Years went by. Lara grew fast. She was smart, curious, and kind. She loved human food, especially strawberry jam. She liked music and painting on the walls. She would laugh whenever David told silly stories about Earth, but she was not human. Sometimes, objects floated when she was scared or angry. Once, she fixed a broken generator just by touching it. Her body glowed faintly in the dark. David kept these things secret. He didn't trust the company or the people on Earth to understand her. He built a hidden room underground just in case. A place where she could be safe if trouble came. But Leary never caused trouble. She was gentle. She called David Dad, and he felt something he hadn't felt in years. Love. She wasn't his blood, but she was his daughter. They were a family. One evening, when Leary was about 10, something strange happened. They were out walking in the forest. David was teaching her how to track wild animals. Suddenly, a mining drone flew over the trees, spun out of control and crashed near them. The drone's power core was unstable, started to spark, and smoke filled the air. David shouted, "Leary, get back!" But Leary didn't run. She stepped forward, raised her hand, and the drone stopped moving. Floating in the air, Cora cooled down. The sparks vanished. David stood frozen. "How? Did you do that?" Leary looked at him. "No, I don't." "No, I just felt it." That night, David didn't sleep. He checked the drone system. A signal had been sent during the crash. Distress beacon. It had gone out into space. Someone or something might have received it. David tried not to worry. Days passed. Then, weeks. But one morning, Leary woke up early and pointed at the sky. "Something is coming," she said quietly. David looked up. The clouds a shadow moved, big, silent, and not human. A ship. The sky above Aster 7 turned dark. The ship that appeared was huge, silent, smooth and shaped like a silver wing. It floated over the forest without sound, blocking the morning sun. David stood with Leary in front of their outpost, staring up. The ship wasn't human. It looked more like a moving piece of art than a machine. David's heart beat fast. "Leary," he whispered. "We need to hide." But Leary didn't look afraid. Her silver eyes were calm. "They're looking for me," she said. David looked at her in surprise. "How do you know?" "I feel it," she replied. He grabbed her hand and led her to the underground room he had built years ago. It had food, supplies, power, and a hidden door. He pressed his hand to the scanner. Door opened, and they went inside. David locked it behind them. But the ship already knew. A strange hum passed through the ground. David's lights flickered, and everything went quiet. From outside came a soft voice, not speaking, but inside his head. "Human, we do not come to harm. Show us the child." David shook his head. "No way," he whispered. "Shh. You can't take her." Leary touched his arm gently. "Maybe they know who I am," she said. "Maybe they can answer the questions you couldn't." David felt torn. He had raised her like a daughter. He had watched her learn to speak, walk, smile, and laugh. But deep inside, he always knew she didn't belong on Aster-7 still. The idea of losing her now made his chest hurt. He reached for his old blaster just in case. A soft knocking came from the hidden door. Leary stood up and walked to it. "It won't hurt us," she said again. "Leary, wait," David said. But it was too late. The door slid open. Standing outside were two tall aliens in shining silver armor. Their faces were smooth like Leary's, but older. They had the same violet skin and silver eyes. Between them stood a tall woman. She wore a glowing robe and a crown of light. Her presence was strong, powerful, and calm. She stepped forward slowly and looked at Leary. "My daughter," she said in a voice that echoed softly in the room. Leary froze. Her eyes went wide. David stood between them. "Wait, who are you?" "I am Queen Celira of the Valari Empire," the woman said. "And this child you call Leary is my blood. She is Valari born, and she is the heir to my throne." David couldn't speak for a moment. He looked at Leary, then at the Queen. "I found her after a crash," he said. "No one came. I raised her. She is my daughter." Queen Celira nodded slowly. "And for that, you have our deepest thanks. We searched every system. We thought she was gone forever. But now she must return." Leary looked between them. "I don't want to leave him." The Queen's face softened. "I understand. But there is more you need to know, child. You are not just Valari. You are Valari royal. Our people need you." David felt like the world was falling apart. Leary, his Leary, wasn't just alien. She was royalty. He looked at her. "Leary, I don't want to lose you, but I won't stop you if you want to go. It's your choice." Leary didn't answer right away. Her small hand reached out and held his tightly. "I want to know who I am," she whispered, "but I want you with me." "Queen." Celira stepped forward. "Then come aboard. You are both welcome." David never imagined stepping onto an alien warship, but hours later, he found himself walking through glowing hallways of silver and glass. The Valari ship was like nothing he had seen. It moved without sound. The air was warm. The walls shimmered like water. I walked beside him, amazed but quiet. Her mother led them to a wide chamber filled with stars. It was a viewing room, showing the galaxy through a giant window. "Your daughter has a strong mind," Celira said. "Her powers are already growing." David nodded. "She's done things I don't understand. Saved lives, fixed machines, even read thoughts." The Queen smiled faintly. "The Valari are born with energy gifts. But Leary's connection to a human has given her something more: emotion, kindness, free will, that is rare among my people." David raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" "She may be our future," Celira said. "But she is different. The elders will not accept her easily. They fear change. They fear your influence." David frowned. So what will happen to her? She will be tested, trained, watched. If she is to rule, she must prove herself. David didn't like the sound of that. Leary wasn't a weapon. She was a child. Over the next few days, Leary stayed on the ship, learning Valari language and history. But every night, she came to David's room and curled up next to him. It's just like before. She was changing, but she still needed him. One evening, after a long day of training, she asked, "Do you think I'm still your daughter?" David smiled and pulled her into a hug. "You'll always be my daughter, no matter what blood you have, no matter what powers you get. You're Leary, and I love you." Leary didn't say anything. She just hugged him tighter. But trouble was growing. David overheard the ship's guards talking. Some Valari nobles were not happy that the queen wanted a human-raised heir. They whispered about corruption, weakness, and even removal. David went to Queen Salira. "Your people don't trust her," he said. "What happens if they try something?" The queen looked tired. "Then we will protect her. But if she fails her test, she may lose her right to rule." David clenched his fists. "She's just a child." Salira looked at him, "Then help her, guide her, the same way you always have. She listens to you more than anyone." Late that night, David stood with Leary on the observation deck. It looked out at the stars. "Do you miss Aster 7? She asked. A little, David said. It was quiet. Simple, but this is your world now. She was silent for a moment. Then she looked at him. "Will you stay with me?" she asked. David smiled.
Yes.
"As long as you want me to." And in the distance, beyond the stars, powerful voices were already gathering, watching, waiting, for the girl raised by a human to rise or fall. The Valari warship glided silently through space, a shining silver bird in the endless black. Inside, the grand halls were filled with light, and the soft hum of advanced technology whispered through every corridor. David walked beside Leary, his heart heavy but full of hope. Leary had been training hard. She learned the Valari language quickly, studied their history, and practiced using her powers. But the court was not kind. Whispers followed her wherever she went. Some nobles looked at her with cold eyes. Others ignored her completely. David could see the strain in her silver eyes. One day, Queen Salira invited David to a private chamber. The room was large and bright, decorated with ancient tapestries and glowing symbols. "David," she said quietly, "you have done more than I ever imagined. Leary respects you deeply. She listens to you, trusts you. That is rare among the Valari." David nodded. "She is brave. But the court, they don't accept her easily." Salira's face hardened.
Alara
"Are proud and traditional. They fear what they do not understand. Your influence, your human ways are seen as weakness." David clenched his fists. "She is not weak. She is strong, stronger than anyone here." Salira smiled sadly. "That is why I have brought someone else." David's eyebrows raised. "Who?" Before she could answer, the doors opened. A tall woman entered. Her skin was the same violet as Leary's, but with scars and signs of battle. Her eyes were sharp, proud, and full of fire. She wore armor decorated with the symbols of Valari warriors. "This is General Maris," Queen Salira said. "The commander of my fleet, and your daughter's protector." David studied Maris. She moved with confidence and strength. But her eyes held something deeper, a challenge. Days passed. Maris trained Leary in the art of war. She taught her how to fight, how to use her powers to defend, how to think like a leader. Leary listened carefully, eager to prove herself, but every lesson was tough. Maris pushed her harder than David ever had. One evening, after a long day, Leary sat alone in the garden. David joined her. "Do you trust her?" he asked softly. I sighed. "She is strict. Sometimes I feel she doesn't believe I am ready." David smiled. "Sometimes people push us because they want us to grow. You must also trust yourself." Leary nodded slowly. Meanwhile, tensions in the court grew. Some nobles whispered openly. A human-raised Valari will ruin us, they said. She is an outsider. Others spread rumors. They said Lyri was too weak to rule, that her powers were dangerous. Her heart was too soft. David knew the queen was losing control of her. Court. One night, David overheard a secret meeting. A group of nobles spoke in low voices. We must remove the child, one said. If she takes the throne, the empire will fall. David's blood ran cold. He rushed to find Queen Salira. You must protect Lyri, he warned. They planned to betray her. Salira looked grim. I know. The empire is divided. Oh, but Lyri's destiny is greater than politics. David shook his head. She's still a child. How can she fight enemies she cannot see? The queen's eyes softened. That is why you must stay. You are her strength. The next day, the Valari court gathered for a great ceremony. Lyri was to be presented officially as the heir to the throne. The hall was filled with nobles, warriors and dignitaries from many worlds. Lyri stood tall beside her mother. David stood quietly behind her. The queen spoke loudly and clearly. This child, raised by a human, is my daughter. She is the future of the Valari Empire. She will lead us to a new age. Some applauded. Others stayed silent. Suddenly a loud voice rang out. She is a disgrace, a weak half-breed, unfit to rule. The hall fell silent. A tall noble stepped forward, his face hard. I challenge her right to the throne. Let her prove her strength in the trial of valor. The queen's face hardened. The trial is ancient and dangerous, but it is the law. Lyri looked at David, fear and determination in her eyes. David took her hand. I'm here. You are not alone. The trial of valor was a test of skill, strength, and courage. Lyri prepared for days. Maris trained her harder than ever. David helped her remember who she was. The trial began in a large arena. The crowd watched in silence. Lyri faced many challenges, tests of speed, strength, and mental power. She fought beasts, solved puzzles, and controlled her powers. At times, she was scared, but she never gave up. When the final challenge came, a duel with a skilled warrior, Lyri used everything she had learned. She fought with grace and strength. In the end, she stood victorious. The crowd erupted in cheers. After the trial, the nobles who had opposed her were quiet. Queen Salira smiled proudly. My daughter has proven herself. She is the true heir. David hugged Lyri tightly. You did it. Lyri smiled back. I had to, for you, for her, for all of us. But the victory was only the beginning. David knew that bigger challenges waited. The empire was still divided. The enemies were still watching. And somewhere, a new secret was waiting to be revealed. After the trial of valor, the Valari Empire was buzzing with talk. Lyri had won the respect of many, but not all. Some still whispered in dark corners, doubting her because of her human upbringing. Others admired her courage and hoped she could bring change. David stood beside Lyri every day. He watched her grow stronger, not just in skill, but in confidence. She carried herself like a true leader now, but her heart was still full of questions. One morning, Queen Salira called David to her chamber. The room was quiet and filled with soft light. She looked serious. David, she began, your ways have changed my people. Your human ideas of kindness and courage have given Lyri strength. Now, but there is something more I need from you. David frowned. What is it? Salira took a deep breath. Our military is strong, but it lacks something you have taught Lyri: compassion and strategy. We want you to train our forces. David blinked in surprise. Me? A human? Train Valari warriors? The queen nodded. Yes, your way of thinking can help us win battles without needless bloodshed. We want to learn from you. David hesitated. Was just a simple engineer. But he saw how much the queen trusted him. I will try, he said. Meanwhile, Lyri was facing her own struggles. The court was still divided. Some Valari nobles openly challenged her. During a meeting, A council elder spoke loudly. She is not Valari enough. Raised by a human, she does not understand our ways. Leary stood up, her silver eyes burning. I'm both Valari and human. I am stronger because of both. You will see. Some council members nodded, others stayed silent. David watched proudly. He knew she was ready to lead, but the path was not easy. Training the Valari military was difficult. Their soldiers were skilled, but used to strict rules and cold discipline. David introduced new ideas, taught them to think about their enemies, to find peaceful solutions first. He showed them how to use technology differently, combining Valari powers with human tactics. At first, many soldiers resisted. They saw David as an outsider, but slowly they began to listen. Maris, the general, worked closely with David. She admired his courage and knowledge. One night, Maris spoke quietly to David. Your ideas are changing us, but not everyone will accept this. Some will fight. David nodded. I know, but change is needed. Leary trained harder than ever. She practiced leadership and diplomacy. She wanted to prove she was worthy not just by power, but by wisdom. One day she was invited to meet with leaders from other planets in the Valari Empire. They talked about peace, trade, and future threats. Leary impressed them with her honesty and courage. Many began to believe in her vision. David smiled. You are becoming the leader they need. Leary looked thoughtful. Want to lead with heart and strength, not just power. But danger was still near. A secret group of Valari nobles plotted against Leary. They believed she was a threat to their old ways. One night, David discovered a plan to kidnap Leary and replace her with a puppet ruler. He warned Queen Celira. The queen acted quickly. She ordered extra guards and increased security. David and Maris stayed close to Leary, watching for any sign of danger. Despite the threats, Leary continued to grow. She learned to balance her two worlds, human kindness and Valari strength. One evening, as she and David looked at the stars, she said, I don't want to lose who I am. Both of me. David nodded. You don't have to. You're both worlds. Suddenly, a message came from deep space. It was from another Valari sector, an urgent call for help. Their colony was under attack. Queen Celira turned to David and Leary. The Empire needs us. Will you lead the fleet to defend our people? Leary looked at David. I will, she said firmly. But I want you with me. David smiled. Always. The stage was set. The Valari Empire was changing, and the human who raised the lost child was now a key part of a new future. But the greatest test was still ahead. The Valari fleet moved through the dark void of space. Their silver ships cut silently through the stars, ready for battle. Leary stood on the bridge of the flagship, her silver eyes bright with determination. Beside her stood David, her father, in every way that mattered, and General Maris, as the fierce protector and warrior. The call for help had come from a distant Valari colony, attacked by a ruthless enemy known as the Craxus. They were merciless and cruel, spreading chaos wherever they went. The Valari could not lose this battle. Leary felt the weight of responsibility heavy on her shoulders. She was the heir, the future queen. But more than that, she was a daughter. Of two worlds, human and Valarian, she knew that her unique strengths could turn the tide. The battle was fierce. Craxus' ships swarmed like angry hornets. The Valari fleet fought back with power and precision, but the enemy was relentless. David watched from the command center as Leary coordinated her fleet. She used every lesson she had learned from her human father and Valari, mother, to outthink the enemy. She ordered careful strikes to disable the enemy's weapons without destroying their ships entirely, as she used diplomacy through emergency channels to send messages promising mercy if they surrendered. Her combination of strength and compassion confused the Craxus. They had never faced an enemy who fought with heart. After hours of fighting, the Craxus ships began to retreat. The Valari cheered, but the victory was bittersweet. Many brave soldiers had fallen. Leary looked out at the stars, feeling both proud and sad. David came to her side. You led well, he said softly. Leary smiled. I couldn't have done it without you. Back on the flagship, Queen Salira awaited their return. She met Leary and David in the Great Hall. The room was filled with light and warmth, a sharp contrast to the cold battle outside. Salira smiled proudly at her daughter. You have done well, Leary. The Empire is proud. 8. Then she turned to David, her eyes serious. But I have come with a request that may change everything. David felt a chill. Salira continued. Our second child was born while we searched for Leary. A daughter like her, strong, curious, but not yet raised. I want you to raise her. David blinked. Me, another child. Yes, Salira said. Gently, I cannot give this child the love and warmth you gave Leary. You are the only one I trust. David was silent for a long moment. Raising one alien child had changed his life forever. Raising another, a royal child of the Velari, was beyond anything he had imagined. Leary stepped forward, her eyes shining. Father, she said, will you help raise my sister? Let's give her the life I had with you? David looked at her and then at the Queen. He smiled softly, a new warmth growing in his heart. Yes, he said. I will. The years that followed were filled with challenges and joy. David built a new home on the Velari capital, a place where human and Velari could live together. He taught both children the best of two: world's human kindness and Velari strength. Leary grew into a wise and strong queen, leading her people into a new era of peace and understanding, and the second child named Myra grew up surrounded by love, learning from both her mother and her adoptive father. David often thought about how strange and wonderful life had become. A simple engineer from Earth had become a father to alien royalty, teacher and a bridge between two worlds. He smiled at the stars, knowing that no matter what the future held, love and family would always be stronger.